Tekken Dark Resurrection was released as an upgrade to Tekken 5 in arcades, and now that upgraded version of Tekken 5 has hit the PlayStation Portable. And you're seeing a lot of interesting new changes to the Tekken 5 formula, mainly some new characters and a few new modes. All in all, this is the same Tekken that you've grown to know and love, and the translation to the PSP is nothing short of amazing. What really makes Dark Resurrection so amazing is the graphics. The game is startling to look at. Other than a few corners that you can see that they cut here and there, the game looks roughly the same as what you'd expect out of the PlayStation 2 version, or you know, even to some extent the arcade version. Those cut corners involve maybe the backgrounds aren't quite as clear. You see maybe a grungy texture here and there. The pre-fight animation isn't quite as crisp. But when you're actually fighting, this looks exactly how you would expect Tekken to look. And as a result, it's one of the most impressive PSP games that has come out so far. The best part about the game's graphics is that it doesn't come at the expense of load times. The game loads pretty quickly between fights, somewhere around 10 seconds, maybe a second under, second over, depending on who it's loading, what background's loading, or whatever. But you're not going to see a lot of downtime between fights. It picks up the action very quickly, and that's great. Tekken Dark Resurrection, like the rest of the Tekken series, is a 4-button fighting game, so you're not going to run into any issues of not having enough buttons on the PSP or anything like that. Each button corresponds to a limb, and as you hit those buttons in the right sequences, you can pull out big combos and you can juggle people in the air, unblockable moves. There's a lot of depth here, so if you're the sort of fighting game player that gets in, really deep and wants to learn every single combo, just like frame-specific counter information and stuff, there's a lot of that here for you. But at the same time, Tekken's always been a very accessible game, so if you're the sort of guy that just wants to pick it up and play it, you're going to get a lot out of it immediately. It's also a very good game in groups, and the game does have support for ad hoc gameplay, so you can get a bunch of people in a room and just have them start challenging each other to multiplayer fights, and that's pretty cool. If you've been playing Tekken on the PlayStation or PlayStation 2 for any length of time, you've probably already gotten used to the D-pad for pulling off moves and stuff like that. The PSP's D-pad looks pretty much the same, but it actually behaves a little differently. And it took me maybe like an hour or so to get really comfortable with it, to where I felt I was pulling out moves with the same type of frequency that I was doing on the PlayStation controller. Stuff like doing Dragon Punch style moves and stuff. It took a little bit of time just to get the motion right, but it's nothing you can't overcome. It's a little bit different, but you'll definitely get used to it. If you also want to, you can use the analog stick to control the game, but it's not quite as precise as you'd probably want. There are over 30 fighters in Tekken Dark Resurrection, and each of them has a relatively different style. You'll see people that are related for storyline purposes, and they'll have a few of the same moves here and there, but maybe execute them a little bit differently. So there's a large move set to learn in the game for each one of the fighters, and on top of that, there are 3 new fighters in Dark Resurrection as well. Armor King returns to the lineup after not appearing in Tekken 5, and there are 2 all-new characters with Lily and Dragunov. Both of these characters fit right in with the Tekken storyline and really seem to make sense. They're also interesting additions that are worth playing. There are a lot of modes in Tekken Dark Resurrection. Plenty of them are the same sort of modes you would expect to see in a fighting game. You've got a pretty good practice mode, you've got a versus mode, team battle, arcade mode, quick battle. But the more interesting modes are stuff like Tekken Bowl, where you can actually just go bowling with Tekken fighters. This was in one of the previous Tekken games, and now it's back. There's also a Gold Rush mode where you kind of fight a little bit differently. You're trying to just beat money out of players, and you can use that money to go and customize characters and stuff like that. But the most interesting mode is the Tekken Dojo mode, and what this does is it takes you to a map, and you kind of have to step your way through these various dojos and working your way up, fighting increasingly difficult fighters. The difficulty of these fighters comes from the game's AI system. Basically what it does is it'll record players' actions and kind of learn from them and build an AI profile based on a player's actions. There are a lot of AI profiles in the game already, and on top of that, the game can actually get online, get on the internet, and download more ghost profiles from a Namco server. Though the game does have internet hooks in it for getting online and downloading stuff, there's no actual online play. Online play is limited to ad hoc local settings. You can do game sharing, which is nice, and it'll actually cache some of the game data onto someone's memory stick, which will make startup time for game share games a little bit faster. You won't have to send quite as much stuff over every single time. as you fight against the computer players, be they ghosts or just straight up arcade mode, you're earning money in the form of gold. You can actually take this money into a customized mode and customize the look of every character. You know, all their costumes can be adjusted in some way. And there's just a lot of really crazy stuff in there. So if you want Paul to have like just a dog clinging to the back of his head, you can do that. And then there's all other stuff like you know, goggles and swords or guitars that'll sit on players' backs. You can change their colors of their outfit and stuff like that. It's a pretty interesting mode. There's a lot of stuff to customize, so you can get your guy looking pretty much how you want, though all the parts are kind of prefabricated. You're not really making grand adjustments. But the adjustments you make to your player when you go to upload that ghost to a server or trade it with a friend, they'll see the customized version of your character, which is pretty cool. All in all, Tekken Dark Resurrection is a really stellar fighting game, and it's probably one of the best portable fighting games to ever be released. Audio-visually, it's just really off the charts. The presentation is really, really on. On top of that, there's a great deal of modes that you can play by yourself or with friends, so whether you have friends around or not, Tekken Dark Resurrection is a really awesome, awesome fighting game. If you're a fight fan and you have a PSP, this is definitely one you should be looking for.